what's coming up on The World Today. And the Senate goes to the Democrats as Reverend Raphael Warnock wins in Georgia's second runoff. Members of Hong Kong's pro-democracy opposition calls for the release of dozens of the city's most prominent activists. Plus, a UK court denies bail to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange days after the court blocked his extradition to the United States. A warm welcome to the program. Today, I'm Teniola Shobowale. The confetti is in the air in the Democratic Party as they win the hotly contested U.S. Senate race in Georgia and pulled in a second, edging closer to control of the chamber and the power to advance President-elect Joe Biden's policy goals when he takes office in just a few weeks. The Democratic challenger Raphael Warnock beat Republican incumbent Kelly Loeffler, while Democrat Jon Ossoff held a narrow lead over Republican David Perdue in the other race, with a final outcome not expected until later today. Democrats must win both contests to take control of the Senate. A Democratic sweep would create a 50-50 split in the Senate and give Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, as President of the Senate, the tie-breaking vote after she and Biden take office on January the 20th. The party already has a narrow majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. If Republicans hold these second seats, they will effectively wield veto power over Biden's political and judicial appointees, as well as many of his legislative initiatives in areas such as economic relief from the coronavirus pandemic, climate change, healthcare, and criminal justice.
We were told that we couldn't win this election, but tonight, we prove that with hope, hard work, and the people by our side, anything is possible. May my story be an inspiration to some young person who is trying to grasp and grab hold of the American dream. And so, Georgia, I am honored by the faith that you have shown in me. And I promise you this tonight. I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia. No matter who you cast your vote for in this election, in this moment in American history, Washington has a choice to make. In fact, all of us have a choice to make.
The VOA's Catherine Gibson was with us yesterday reporting on the polls. She joins us again from Atlanta, Georgia. Catherine, hearing that the sky is indeed blue in Georgia following these two races, how sure are we now that the Democrats have won both seats in the Senate?
Well, I would say that it's partly blue here in Georgia today because, of course, as we saw, Reverend Raphael Warnock does appear to have beat Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler in that one Senate runoff. We're still awaiting the results of the other Senate runoff election between Democrat Jon Ossoff and Republican Senator David Perdue. As we know from the November presidential election, the margins here in Georgia are always tight, and right now they are tight between Perdue and Ossoff. We may not have an answer until Friday when some of those provisional ballots come in from overseas and military members. But right now, overall, Democrats are celebrating here in Georgia. They have worked for years and years on the ground here to change this traditionally Republican state into a purple state, into a swing state that will deliver Democratic senators to Washington, D.C. to enact President Biden's agenda.
Oh, Catherine, while we wait for the final results, I just want you to explain to our international viewers again what a Democratic win in Congress means for the incoming administration.
Sure. So, well, it's important to remember that these two Senate wins would be very important for Democrats. They would just represent a tie in the U.S. Senate. The tie-breaking vote would be the Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. So there wouldn't be a massive majority for President Biden to build on. He would be seeking to make deals with the other side because he doesn't have a significant majority in the U.S. Senate. However, he would have all Democrats in the committee chairmanships. They would be passing through his judicial appointments, and he wouldn't have Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell blocking any potential legislation. So while it's not a huge win, it is key, important, it's very crucial, and he is going to be very happy today watching these results come out of Georgia.
All right, then it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us once again.
You're so welcome.
Staying with America's politics, Congress is meeting today to confirm Joe Biden's victory in the November presidential election. A joint session will count and confirm electoral college votes. Some Republicans have pledged to support President Donald Trump's effort to overturn the result by formally objecting at the session in a bid that is almost certain to fail. Hundreds of National Guard members are being mobilized.
Mr. President Trump, running this country for more years. Portland, Michigan.
Well, those are some of the ongoing pro-Trump protests, and we're also expecting some later on today. We have our eyes on ground in Washington. Maria Bird, she joins us on the program. Maria, can Congress refuse to confirm Joe Biden's win, and how much of an upset would this be to the country's political process?
Good evening. Yes, this is something that is unprecedented. You're exactly right. Could it happen? It could most definitely happen. Is it likely to happen? I think is the real question here. And it's very unlikely that the Congress would not certify Joe Biden being the next president of the United States come January 20th. But we are in times where we are expecting that this will be a much longer process than normal. Normally, you have the vice president will go to Congress. It'll be a 30-minute process. They will put the votes inside of 2 boxes, and then he will announce who the next president will be. They will take the gavel, and it will be over. But this time we are expecting that there will be contesting of these votes, that some people will come out, some senators will come out and contest the actual electoral votes for specific states. And obviously we all know that if a specific state's electoral vote is not counted and they are saying that they were falsified or illegal, then that would then drastically impact the number of electoral votes that President-elect Joe Biden has. And so that's really where the challenge potentially comes in play. But it's expected that Vice President Pence will follow the Constitution, and that even though it'll be a long, contentious process, it is expected that at the end of the day, we will see that President-elect Biden will be the next president of the U.S.
Yes, speaking of Mr. Pence, again, I want to point out President Donald Trump is still looking for ways to win the presidential election, and we're hearing is not very happy with Vice President Mike Pence, who reportedly says he would not be helping the president by not confirming the Electoral College votes. At this point, what other options are open to President Trump at this time?
Well, the options are becoming very slim. We've seen that the court cases have not quite panned out for him. We're seeing that there are senators that are going to try to contest today, and potentially if those electoral votes are deemed illegal and they are not counted, that could potentially be a potential win for the president. But it is extremely unlikely that that will happen. But that is pretty much where it stands today, which is why you're seeing him getting ready to approach and speak at the pro-Trump rally. You're seeing so many pro-Trump supporters coming out because this is kind of the last bit of being able to overturn the election, because we are now literally days away from the inauguration and from him no longer being the president of the U.S.
All right, interesting and critical times ahead, Maria. So much to keep our eyes on. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Moving away from the US, Hong Kong police have confirmed arresting 53 people in a swoop on pro-democracy activists on suspicion of undermining the government in the biggest crackdown yet on the Chinese-ruled city's opposition camp. Earlier, authorities arrested prominent pro-democracy advocates tied to an unofficial, independently organized vote in July 2020 to select opposition candidates for a since-postponed legislative election. Li Kuai-wah, senior superintendent of police under the National Security Department, told a news briefing that campaigning to win a majority in Hong Kong's 70-seat legislature with the purpose of blocking government's proposals to increase pressure for democratic reforms could be seen as subversive. Police cited a rule that if the legislature fails to pass the annual budget twice, the city's chief executive must step down. The national security law prohibits disrupting and interfering with the city's administration. Meanwhile, members of the pro-democracy opposition arrested earlier today have called for the release of their colleagues, calling their arrest ridiculous and contrary to the promises of the city's basic law. Speaking at a news conference earlier in the day, police had said the activists and opposition members had been prepared to vote down the city's annual budget twice, which would force the city's chief executive to step down. Police said such acts may run counter to the territory's national security law, which prohibits disrupting and interfering with the city's administration.
Alleged to us, this is ridiculous to the extreme. When the Secretary for Security alleged that the 35-plus plan was subversive and pushed Hong Kong over a steep cliff, we think that who actually pushed Hong Kong through a steep cliff is the political power who behaved treacherously in not observing what has been promised us under the basic law.
Well, Amnesty International has jumped into the situation, decrying the arrest of the activist, saying the action puts a chill on the city's political opposition.
I would say it's hard to see how holding an informal primary contest to set political strategy for elections should qualify as something as an existential threat to national security. But that's the nature of what the authorities are effectively saying here. It becomes really hard for people to judge what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And it's certainly, I think the intention is to put a chill on the political opposition, if not to wipe it out completely.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is back in Belmarsh prison in southeast London after his bail was denied by a British court earlier today. Assange had asked to be freed on bail after the judge ruled on Monday that he should not be extradited to the United States because he would be at risk of suicide. Assange's partner Stella Morris said at a press conference today the judge's decision was a huge disappointment and called on the United States to pardon him.
I urge the Department of Justice to drop the charge.
A great disappointment to get this decision now from Judge Barrecher not to release Julian Assange on bail. We think it's unjust and unfair and illogical as such. When you consider her ruling 2 days ago about Julian's health, which of course is caused in large part because he is being held in Belmarsh prison, to send him back there doesn't make any sense from any perspective. It's inhumane and it's illogical. This denial of bail will, in most likelihood, will be appealed to the High Court within hours or a few days, and we will expect this to be overturned.
Still ahead on the program. More progress on vaccinations across Europe as the health agency approves the Moderna vaccine for use. More details in a moment. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on the program. The European Medicines Agency, EMA, has recommended the Moderna vaccine for use in the EU's 27 states. It's the second vaccine to be given the green light by the agency, the first being the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine last month. The vaccine only has to pass the hurdle of being formally signed off by the EU Commission before it can be distributed across the continent. Here's more on this and other developments on our COVID-19 Global Update.
News about the European Health Agency approving the use of Moderna comes as the global number of COVID-19 cases surpasses 84.4 million, while the death toll draws closer to 1.85 million. Other countries within the EU bloc have been making plans on vaccines. Germany, for one, is waiting on approval by the European Commission to begin receiving more than 130 million doses from Moderna and BioNTech. The country's health minister says they expect deliveries of the first doses to start from next week. In Italy's Bergamo town, which has borne the brunt of the country's COVID-19 contagion, authorities have begun injecting health workers with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. The first phase of the vaccination campaign involves about 5,000 health workers, including general practitioners, pediatricians, and volunteer staff for ambulance rescue, for a total of 8,392 people. Meanwhile, Spain's pharmaceutical firm Rovi, which was selected in October for the final stage of manufacturing for Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine outside the United States, is expected to start in early 2021. In the Netherlands, people in the town of Veghel are satisfied after vaccination began with a local nurse, despite criticism that the country is the last to begin its vaccination drive. In a debate in Parliament on Tuesday, Prime Minister Mark Rutte said he should have instructed local health authorities to prepare earlier for a mass vaccination campaign, but that the government had been ready for a different vaccine and lacked refrigeration infrastructure required by the Pfizer vaccine.
Now, the World Health Organization says that vaccinating health workers and those at high risk of serious disease is the fastest way to stabilize health systems. This comes as more than 30 countries have started vaccinating their high-risk populations with various COVID-19 vaccines.
We must identify and find those who are infected, provide the care they need, and help them truly isolate safely. We are in a race to prevent infections, bring cases down, protect health systems, and save lives, while rolling out highly effective and safe vaccines to high-risk populations. This is not easy. These are the hard miles we must tread together. But if we act together, we can win both races and get ahead of the virus, while also limiting the opportunity for the virus to mutate further and threaten the health tools we currently have. 1 year on from WHO issuing its first disease outbreak news report about this virus, more than 30 countries have started vaccinating their high-risk populations with various COVID-19 vaccines. The scientific community has set a new standard for vaccine development. Now, the international community must set a new standard for access.
To bilateral relations, India's foreign minister has met with the Sri Lankan president and foreign minister in an effort to boost ties and strategic investments in the island. India says the officials discussed possible cooperation in the fields of infrastructure, energy and connectivity, while Sri Lanka's foreign minister says the pair also discussed the ongoing coronavirus pandemic.
During our talks, we focused on multiple areas of mutual cooperation in the identified sectors of the economy, finance, trade, commerce, defense, security and fisheries, cultural, and particularly on the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the post-COVID era that we are moving.
As two close neighbors with such obvious synergies, the potential for further strengthening our cooperation is enormous. Some of that may help provide immediate relief. Others would have very positive medium-term implications for Sri Lanka's development. There are many proposals under discussion, including in infrastructure, energy, and connectivity.
On a lighter note, let's step into Cairo's Museum of Illusions. The museum offers an interactive experience for people of all ages through its spectacular installations that defy the physics of perception and illusion. Take a look. Walk under a swimming pool, fully dressed without getting wet. Step into a tunnel where the ground sways under your feet. Or stand upside down in a rotating room. But this is all just pure illusion. It's an experience offered in Cairo's Museum of Illusions, where visitors enjoy nearly 70 installations that test their senses.
Honestly, this is a new experience. This is the first time to have something like this in Egypt. This is suitable for all ages. The young and old will have fun. Illusions are all things that I see for the first time.
Illusions are designed to trick one's senses, but everything has its own scientific, mathematical, or psychological explanation.
You enter and you see things that are not real. But at the same time, there is an explanation that makes you understand why you see things this way.
The museum offers an interactive experience for people of all ages. The illusions also include holograms, optical illusions, and an infinity room. Looks like a lot of fun. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shubowale. Bye for now.